we're talking about data, and we all know that data growth is exploding. And one of the things that has been really surprising in the last decade is the rise of unstructured data. And you saw Dee talk about both data warehouses and data lakes. And unstructured data is really data that does not fit into a traditional database format. And that's the bulk of the data that we have today. I mean, think about your own life. If you're taking a picture on your cell phone, or you're taking a video, or you're calling a call center, or you're driving a self-driving car, or an electric car, or you're getting an X-ray from your doctor, all of that is generating unstructured data, because none of that data fits a specific schema, because an X-ray file is very different from an audio file, which is very different from a video file, which is very different from a log file, etc. So 90% of the world's data today is unstructured data. And that's the data that's really growing rapidly. And because that unstructured data has no specific format to it, managing unstructured data is hard, because you have to manage all this variety of data. So today's presentation, I'm just going to talk to you about what can you do to address both the costs of unstructured data and monetizing the value of unstructured data. And this is why we created Komprise, to address these two problems. Also, a lot of this unstructured data is piling up in different places. You heard Redapt say, many people don't just have one cloud, they have multiple clouds. A lot of data is sitting still in data centers. Soon, you're going to get so much data from the edge that you can't just stream all that data immediately to the cloud, because the volumes are going to be so huge. So as data continues to pile up in different places, you need a way to manage data across those environments. And again, that calls for unstructured data management. And the last thing is, you've heard a lot of presentations today about how to monetize your data. And unstructured data, I think Dee was mentioning that a data lake can easily become a data swamp, because the data is piling in their native format. And with unstructured data, because that native format doesn't have any specific schema, it makes it hard to search it and find it and use it. So we're going to show you how unstructured data management actually helps you monetize all this unstructured data better. And that's very important for applications like machine learning that rely on unstructured data. So those are the three things I'm going to cover in this presentation. I'm going to show you how having a systematic solution to look at all your unstructured data, move your unstructured data, and manage it, how we can help you address these three big market problems. Okay? And we'd love to make this interactive. I know it's really hard to do these things over a Zoom call or a GoToWebinar call, but hopefully you guys are still hanging in there with us, and feel free to ask any questions you want along the way. Okay? So data management really needs a new way of thinking, particularly for this unstructured data. And unstructured data is typically sitting as files or objects in your clouds and in your data centers. So what do you need to stop doing, and what do you need to do better? Well, the first thing is that you can't keep throwing more resources at this problem. Because data is growing at 30%, 50%, 100%, 200% year over year, just adding more storage or paying a bigger cloud bill is not going to help you. So you've got to take a different approach to managing this. And many of the cloud providers are trying to help you with this. You heard Dee say that Azure Blob includes some intelligent querying inside it. And those are the kinds of solutions data management can leverage to help you reduce the cost and improve utilization of your unstructured data. The second thing is that backing up all your unstructured data is really becoming impossible, because the backup time takes so long that the data is no longer consistent. And you heard, I think it was Bob from the first presentation, he explained that guys like ransomware companies are becoming smart. If you have a 60-day backup window, they just keep their ransomware lurking for 75 days and then trigger it. That means your backup protection has become unreliable, and you can't just keep extending backup windows longer and longer. So you have to think of a different way. Do you really need to back up all this data? Is there another way of protecting data from ransomware attacks? And again, data management can help you with that. The third thing is, something that Dee mentioned, there's kind of a top down and a bottoms up way to think about data analytics. The top down approach works well for very structured data with a data warehouse. And for unstructured data, it's really appealing to just throw all your unstructured data in native format into some blob and think, okay, that's my data lake. But that data lake really becomes a data swamp. It's impossible to find anything unless you put some structure around it. And I'll show you how data management can put things into something like a delta lake and create that structure around all this unstructured data. And the last thing is, really, we have to stop treating all data the same, because data has different value throughout its life cycle. If you had a baby, or if you have a kid, and you can see from all the pictures behind me that I do have kids, I don't think you'd ever think of having a kid have the same crib or bassinet from the time they're born to the time they go to college, right? You would take them from a crib to probably a twin bed to maybe, eventually hoping that they'll move out of the house and have their own king bed somewhere. So for humans, we know that we have different needs throughout our lives. Data is the same way. Data has different needs throughout its life cycle. Sometimes data is hot and you need to have it on the highest performance tier. Sometimes data is cold and you're not really looking at it, and it should not be consuming much resources. Again, data management can do all that for you, so you don't have to babysit the data. Okay, so these are the problems that I'm going to show you how we can solve. And this is why Gartner says the industry doesn't have a storage problem, it has a data management problem. Okay, so how can you address all this data management? Well, there are really three steps. The first step is, how do you know what you have? Data has been piling up in many, many places. Users don't want to go and tell IT, I have so much data, or I'm using this data, or I want to use this data next. Users don't want to do that. They're too busy doing their work. How can you know what data your organization has? Where is it sitting? Who is using it? How fast it's growing? So the first thing a data management solution needs to do is give you analytics on your data. The second thing is that, your data has to move around. It has to have mobility, right? Even within a cloud, you take Azure. Azure has excellent file storage classes. It has different blob storage classes. Azure has a data lake. You heard about different services Azure has to analyze the data. And AWS is the same way, and Google is the same way. So how do you move data across these storage tiers and storage classes? Maybe even move them across clouds, from your data center to cloud, etc. How do you mobilize your data systematically so you don't have to sit there and try to copy a petabyte of data somewhere and deal with all the permission issues and all of that? There's some system doing it for you by policy automatically. That's something data management should do for you. The third thing is, how do we create some index, some structure around all this unstructured data so that you can ingest it into a delta lake, so that your AWS Redshift could use your data, etc. So those are the three things data management provides, and I'll show you how Komprise, which was created to solve these problems, how we address this. Okay, so Komprise is a data management software. You can use it, you can just start using Komprise from any of the cloud marketplaces. So we're available on the AWS marketplace, we're available on the Azure marketplace. And if you want to try it, We can show you how you can try it at no cost. And the first thing Komprise does is it helps you understand what data you have and helps you save 60% or more of your costs on your data by systematically through policy doing things like data tiering across different classes. So not just inside blob, but across file and blob, across your on-premise file storage and the cloud, across different classes of AWS, etc. So we do things like data tiering, data replication, so you don't have to keep another site for disaster recovery, data migration, etc. So we can address a lot of these infrastructure use cases to help you save 60% or more on your data. And I'll show you how Pfizer did exactly this using Komprise. And as you point Komprise at your data, Komprise automatically indexes all your data. That's why Ron said in the beginning, Komprise is like a Google search for all your data. So you may have, maybe 100 buckets, and you have data sitting in all these buckets. You just point Komprise at your cloud account, and Komprise gives you a full searchable index of all the data. So you can go in and search and say, I want to find anything that related to maybe this genome experiment that any of our scientists did in this time frame. And Komprise will find all the objects and files that fit that criteria for you. So you don't have to go and list one bucket at a time and find it. And then it will move the data to help you do more big data analytics or help you with a compliance use case or a governance use case, etc. Okay. So with that background, let me actually give you a customer example. We all know Pfizer. You might have even gotten a COVID shot from Pfizer. You know that they got this vaccine out in record time. But what you probably don't know behind the scenes is that Pfizer scientists generate a lot of data. They generate over 10 terabytes of data every single day. 10 terabytes of data is like 1 or 2 billion photos. I mean, imagine if every day you're taking a billion new photos and you have to store it somewhere. That's what's happening at companies like Pfizer, right? And so Pfizer has a cloud first strategy. So they said, how can we get more of our data into the cloud? How can we stop managing all this ourselves? But how do we do this without disrupting what our scientists are doing, without changing their workflows and their applications? That's where Komprise came in. We actually partnered with AWS, and Komprise software analyzed all the data on their data centers, across different file storage systems, because that's what they had. They had different file storage in their different data centers. Komprise analyzed all of it, and it showed that 66% of their data was not being actively used. It was cold. With over a year, nobody had touched those files. And that's not that hard to believe, because just think about your own life. I mean, think about your cell phone and how many photos and videos you take on your phone, and how often do you go and look at every picture that you took. But if you're like me, you don't even delete the bad photos. You keep them all because you think one day you're going to show it to someone, right? And that's what happens to companies. Data keeps piling up, and a lot of that data becomes cold, but it's consuming expensive resources. So the first thing we did is we analyzed all their data, showed them what's cold, and transparently, Komprise moves that data by policy from their data center file storage into the cloud, and it still looks like a local file. So Komprise is able to do cloud tiering across file and object storage, across different data centers and clouds. And by doing this, we help them save over $2.5 million in the first year alone, and they're continuing to move more data. So they're continuing to save more money. But more important than the savings is that Komprise indexes all their data. So we have an index, a search, a Google search-like capability across all their data that now their scientists are able to use. So their scientists are using it to find specific data and run microscopic genomic analysis on that data in the cloud. And that's really important because how do you make sure you don't have data swamps everywhere? The way you make sure you don't have data swamps everywhere is by making it easy for not just some data engineer or data scientist, but for every user in your company that has the right permissions to be able to find data easily, right? Just like Google search made your HTML web page come to life because it gave a way to search across billions of websites easily. That's what a global file index does for all the corporate data. It unlocks the potential of that data for all your users. And that's what companies like Pfizer are using with Komprise. So a little bit on how the product works. Basically, the one thing you want with data management is you want something that helps you look at data and move data, but doesn't get in the way of your access. And that's really important. Whatever data management you want to look at, you should always ask, what happens when that solution moves data? Do you have to always go through that data management tool to get to your data? Because if you do, I would not advocate that you go for a solution like that. You don't want somebody getting in the path of your data access. What you really want is data management that is non-intrusive, that can just run in the background, can give you a lot of information about your data, that can move your data by policy, but leave it in its native form wherever it's moved. And that's what Komprise does. Komprise is a non-intrusive, standards-based data management solution for all your file and object data. And basically the way it works is it runs as a cloud service. You simply connect to it. You point it at your different cloud accounts and your different data centers that you wanted to look at. Komprise gives you valuable analytics on the data, and I'll show you some of the analytics in a minute. And then it indexes your data automatically. You can set policies and it moves data based on your policies. And that index that it builds, you can enrich it with more tags, more information beyond what's available by default, so that your data, no matter where it goes, it's easy to search, easy to find, easy to extract, and easy to use. Okay. When you point Komprise at your environment, it very quickly shows you, even on petabytes of data, how much of your data is really actively being used. That's the yellow and the red colors. And how much of it is cold. And you can see that in this environment, a lot of the data is cold. And then it gives you all kinds of different analytics on the data. But not only that, you can actually set policies in Komprise. You can say, well, for all my pathology shares, maybe anything over 6 months, I want to move it off to one of the clouds, and I want to move it to a particular bucket here. And as you set these policies, Komprise actually shows you, based on your own costs in different places, how much you're going to save, how much of your backup is going to be reduced, and how much capacity is going to be freed. So you can, before you do any data movement, you can understand the impact in your own environment. And once you do that, Komprise, as I said, in the background has indexed all your data, so you can run things like find me all data from X employees, or find me data related to this project, or find me data these users created in this time frame. You can do whatever search you want, and basically Komprise is giving you a structured way to query unstructured data because it's automatically indexed all that data for you. Okay. So once you do that, and you set your policies, Komprise actually moves the data. And one of the key things it does is that it helps you tier across different architectures. So you can take a file from a file environment and move it to an object through Komprise, and it still looks like a local file and can be opened as a local file, and can also be opened as an object on the cloud without going through Komprise. So this transparent move is a patented capability that Komprise provides, which enables file-object duality. And this is useful because people don't want to rewrite their file applications. They want to keep using file applications, but they want to leverage data lakes. So this gives you a bridge to leverage, to continue to run file applications while leveraging the power of object storage and data lakes. Okay. I'm going through this pretty fast because we have a limited amount of time, but we're happy to, give you more of a live demo and show you more things as later if you like. And with that index, you can actually run any queries you want. So here I'm showing you all the standard attributes that files and objects have. So you could search for something that has a particular kind of, a string in its file name or directory name, because maybe the project name is in somewhere in the directory folder. Or search for something that particular users created or in particular times or whatever. And you can create these queries, and Komprise will show you the results of those queries and also the actual files that fit it, not just summary results, but actual files. And then you can take action through Komprise and say, well, anything that fit that query, go ahead and copy it into my data lake, or go ahead and run this PII algorithm on it, or use this service, natural language detection service, because I want to understand the sentiment of those callers. So process it through that, and Komprise will move the data and kind of run that workflow for you. So basically, data management gives you an easy way, particularly for unstructured data, to stop the madness, to stop always having to endlessly buy more storage or keep backing up everything the same way, or just dealing with data swamps and listing one bucket at a time and trying to manually search and find stuff yourself, and treating all data the same. You don't have to do any of that if you used a good data management solution, because it will help you reduce your costs and improve the usefulness of your unstructured data. I hope this was valuable.